Hello, my name is Amanda Young, and this is my course project on my learning model. So what is a learning theory? As defined by Driscoll, theory of learning is a set of laws or principles related to education. Theories about anything will typically originate with a question. A particularly important question related to education could be, how do effective teachers organize their instruction? Or how do educators make information relevant to their students? These are both good questions related to the idea of what components make up the utopia of learning. As I have reflected on the numerous theories we have studied throughout this course, I have found several key strategies that support my learning belief and that I feel would greatly benefit my classroom, making me an effective teacher. I conclude that no single theory is perfect nor has everything I need for my learning strategy. Instead, my learning strategy is made up of specific parts from multiple theories. I currently have no real teaching experience, but I am working on my teaching certificate that will be in early childhood through 4th grade. My educational belief is that it's not only important to teach content, but to teach learning strategies and critical thinking skills that will benefit my students years to come. With all this considered, my learning strategy is based on 4 concepts. The first one is that my classroom is a conducive learning environment. Secondly, that I am able to make connections for my students that matter. Thirdly, that I use technology that is pertinent in the classroom. And last of all, that I am able to successfully scaffold in new information. To be able to achieve these goals, I chose 3 main theories and picked out what I felt was the most important and supportive to my own learning theory. First and foremost, I selected Piaget's genetic epistemology theory. Although Piaget has received quite a bit of criticism, his theory is still significant within the current field of education. Recently, I have learned that our school curriculum is based on Piaget's 4 stages of development. This makes Piaget's theory an important concept for educators to understand. Why is Piaget's theory so important? Because it gives teachers a platform of how cognitive development works. It is important we understand these stages, the cognitive abilities at each stage, and how children advance from one stage into the next, for us to be effective teachers. I find that Piaget stages for all of my learning strategies, and by understanding these 4 stages, I will use them to create a conducive learning environment, realize what information is relevant at each age, use age-appropriate technology, and understand how scaffolding can be most successful. So, what is Piaget's 4 stages of development, and how does it apply to my learning model? Well, it starts with sensor-motor, which begins at birth until about age 2. In this stage, children demonstrate goal-directed behavior. So if I were to teach toddlers, I could use a reward system to achieve my instructional goals. The second stage, Piaget explains, is pre-operational. Children in this stage range from the age of 2 to 7, and a common characteristic is these children can have a difficult time seeing someone else's point of view. Children begin school within this stage, and Piaget suggests that they use a lot of pretend and symbolic play. Here, I would make lesson plans fun and interactive to enhance a child's learning experience. Third is the concrete operational stage. This is children aged 7 to 11 years. At this stage, children can solve concrete problems in a logical fashion. Also, they may have a difficult time thinking hypothetically. So teaching students concrete concepts and stay away from hypothetical questions would be beneficial. Last is the formal operational stage, which is age 11 and up. This stage, children can reason hypothetically and often develop concerns over social issues. At this stage, using lesson plans that allow them to express their concerns over a social issue or political matter in a science or a government class could help the information be more relevant and better retained. Understanding each stage can help educators with lesson plans, scaffolding in new information, and overall understanding a child's cognitive abilities. The second theory I find that is relevant to my learning belief is Lev Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, and most importantly, scaffolding. This theory defines my learning belief of scaffolding, and although it has little relevance to the other parts of my learning belief, understanding scaffolding is quite important to being an effective teacher. Both scaffolding and the zone of proximal development, or ZPD, is also important in the field of education. Throughout my certification, the terms scaffold and ZPD are used again and again. One major area that discusses scaffolding is lesson plans, and lesson plans are the roadmap for teachers. So what is scaffolding and ZPD? The zone of proximal development defines those skills that a child has not yet developed, but are on the course to maturity. The best practices within the zone of proximal development is having a more advanced peer or adult mentoring the less progressive student to generate cognitive development. Scaffolding is where the educator or the more advanced peer operates as a supportive tool for the learner as they develop knowledge. To further the understanding of how a scaffold works, think of a scaffold that is used on a construction site. Driscoll explains that a scaffold is used as a support, as a tool. It extends the reach of the worker, and it supports the worker to achieve tasks not otherwise possible. Scaffolding is a very important concept, especially with children who are considered outliers and need extra support learning new concepts. When planning for these students, all children benefit. My last is Gaines' 9 events of instruction. This part of Gaines' theory is similar to a detailed list of how to deliver a lesson plan. The first and second events are gaining attention and informing learners of the objective. Both events can be compared to the introduction of a lesson plan. Gaining attention can also be thought of as the engage piece of the 5 E's lesson plan. But gaining attention does not have to just happen at the beginning. It can be used throughout to redirect your students' attention. Third is the event is stimulating recall or prior learning is part of the scaffolding piece. You are able to understand what a child can learn by recalling prior knowledge. Fourth event is presenting the stimulus or content, which is the meat of the lesson plan. Make relevant connections here that make the information relevant for your students. The fifth event is providing learning guidance. And as an educator, you should decide the amount of guidance that is needed for the outcome that is expected. If the content is more difficult, I would, for example, take in consideration the level my students are at and the length of time I have for the lesson, and decide if they may need additional support. Driscoll states that events 1 through 5 of Gaines' 9 events of instruction show that learning has likely occurred. Event 6 is eliciting performance, confirms their learning. Event 7 is providing feedback. This gives the student an informative criticism on their performance. Event 8 is assessing performance. My teaching certification reiterates the importance of formal assessment. This will allow you to be aware if your students are learning the content that you are teaching. And last is Event 9, and it is enhancing retention and transfer. Although this is the last event in the series, instructional activities to enhance retention and transfer are frequently built into the instruction at a much earlier phase. Gaines' 9 events of instruction is a very important concept to understand. Many pieces will help you with your lesson plans and everything in your classroom management. The one thing that all these theories have in common is the importance of understanding the cognitive abilities of the learner. This is why I believe that scaffolding in information is so important. You have to ensure that before you try to scaffold in new information, your students have the prior knowledge to build on, and this is where formal assessments are valuable. Through this process, I have learned just how important it is to support your students while they are learning a new concept. A support can be numerous things. For example, it can be an elaboration on a lesson to help students understand material, or even using the concept in a new way. I have also learned that it is important to teach information in multiple ways and to make sure it is relevant to help students retain information. Most of all, make sure that you are an active part of your classroom, and if something is not working, I can always refer back to the multiple theorists and the learning theories to help me gain understanding.